Hello, Darren. How are you?
I'm very well. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, very good to meet you, Harry.
Yeah, and you, and you. So we just had a little for the listeners sort of who aren't privy to this. We just had a bit of a conversation, and it's you're in your 25th year of teaching and being
Yes,
in the teaching sector. How
that's right. Yeah,
how are you finding that?
I feel very lucky to have had the career that I've had. I've always loved. I love being a teacher. I was an English teacher for probably the first 15 years, and then
Okay, so quite a long time spent in
then I
that
moved into leadership, running schools, and then running groups of schools, and now really just more focusing more on supporting schools and groups with their AI implementation. But no, I've enjoyed every almost maybe not marking the homework, but most of
Yeah,
my career I've really enjoyed.
yeah, fantastic. Am I right in saying you were a headmaster of a school?
Yeah,
For
so I've run a
school.
few schools
Okay.
here, there, and everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you sort of get to that point? Because I imagine perhaps not in your view, but from my perspective, who's never been a teacher, and from other people who also haven't. Surely that's sort of kind of where people would go to the pinnacle of it. So you've come away from that.
Yeah. So I guess got to the point where I wanted to do more,
Okay.
and so from running a school, I then managed head teachers. So that I then managed schools, and then I helped build schools, and then I bought schools. And so I've done most when it comes to education. I've pretty well done every. I've worked in a housemaster in a school in Switzerland. So I've done most of the things that you can think about when it comes
Okay.
to schools and education.
Yeah. Been everywhere, seen everything. So it's so where are you at now? Where have you sort of landed at this
Yeah.
point in your career?
So now I'm essentially working for myself.
Okay.
And I really work with schools supporting their AI implementation. And I'm particularly interested at the moment in how schools can use AI to make things more efficient, to speed
Mhm.
up a lot of the, I guess you'd call boring but important sort of back end stuff,
Yeah.
to free teachers up to have more time to add value, more maybe more
Mhm.
energy. I don't see AI as necessarily giving teachers masses of free time back, because actually teachers, having been one for so many years, we tend to fill the time.
Yeah,
But
even if
what
it's
we
not marking books and things like that, or
Yeah,
the
exactly.
admin
But
stuff.
really keen to think about, well, if you can give teachers some time back, and leaders time back, and administrators, and school business managers, and all the operational stuff, which I'm particularly interested in, that side of things. If you can do that, then okay, well, what if teachers are able to bring more energy into their interactions with students, then I think that's where the real power is. So,
Okay.
and also on the student side, how can you support their learning through AI
Mhm.
so that they're kind of supercharged as well? So you can almost imagine, if you can create the optimal conditions for the interaction between the teacher and the student, then that's the power. So it's less about having AI kind of in the way in between the teacher and the student. It's more about empowering both teacher and
Mhm.
student. So when they interact with each other, there's more energy, I suppose.
Yeah, so you're looking more so at the quality of things rather than the fact that it can create lots and lots of things, if that makes sense. So rather than the fact that it can generate loads of different things to look at and loads of different, for example, the
Mm,
fact that it can do lots of admin tasks I'm saying things very in a two-dimensional way here, I understand, but
mhm.
the fact that it can, so less about the fact that it can do so many admin tasks and all the things that do free up the time, but you're focusing on more what the teachers will do with that time.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
if they're if they lit if for example, just something as basic, and I call it like level one AI use,
Hmm.
where they're using it to generate a scheme of work.
Yeah.
So they've inputted the assessment objectives and the syllabus and the exam papers and mark schemes. So they've fed this data into, let's say it's ChatGPT, could be
Hmm.
other, but the one that most people know and use. If they then create this knowledge base, which is a very specific niche knowledge base, just linking to the one subject, the one exam, the one book, novel, if you're teaching English or whatever, or the one exam paper, if out of that can come a quite nicely structured scheme of work, then actually that will have saved the teacher a lot of time.
Yeah.
What they can then do is use that time to add the human originality and, you know, the parts that AI can't do, because AI is very, very good at, as you know, AI is very, very good at structuring messy. It's very good at taking messiness and creating organized structure, because
Yeah.
that's the way, it's just the way it's built. It's a pattern seeking machine, and it's a
Hmm.
predictive machine. And therefore what it can do is it can, based on its training data, it can take this messy bunch of start knowledge, and it can order and structure. And it's the thing that actually I think a lot of humans and teachers in particular, because they tend to be very creative in who we are. It's just, you know, creative people tend to be drawn towards teaching. It's not always the thing that we either enjoy or are very good at. And so what AI can do is it can overlay our kind of our messiness with an initial structure,
Hmm.
and from there it can actually help to sort of give us more time to be creative. And it's the same with students. Something as simple as planning an essay can be quite hard for some students, but
Yeah.
what an AI can do is it can give you that structure, you know, paragraph 1, focus on this point, paragraph 2, and
Yeah.
then the student does the work. AI is not doing the work, but
No.
what the AI can do is it can give that initial structure. And I think that's a lot of, that can take up a lot of brain space.
Yeah.
Structuring and organizing your thoughts can take up it. And so actually, if we're saying, well, I can free some of that brain space up with the lower order thinking, you know, if we talk about kind of Bloom's taxonomy of scale, which is kind of the different levels or layers of intelligence or thinking that you need to apply to any one problem, if it
Yeah.
can take some of that lower order structural thinking away,
Yeah.
just gives us, it literally gives us more brain space
Yeah.
to focus on the big thinking, which is really where we want to be pushing students into the future.
Absolutely. No, that's a great way of putting it, especially with in regards to the tiers of it. I think that's a brilliant way of putting it. I mean, I know from my experience in school, I was very, I think I had the capacity in a lot of senses, but I think, starting off an essay, for example,
Exactly.
that was my
Exactly.
biggest problem, structure and organization. I just didn't have it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I really struggled with it. So I think if,
Yeah, exactly.
for someone like me, it would have been very beneficial to, here's your starting point for this, here's your starting point for this, and then, go crazy, because the creative side of it was never a problem. And I think a lot of people are that way inclined, but it's the, I suppose maybe even the more academic side of the structure and being able to, pinpoint certain areas and hit those hit those points of an essay, which people struggle with, I believe. So is your what you're doing at the moment, so is it more advising, or are you actually sort of handing a solution in the form of a platform?
So I've working with one platform, Study Hall.
Study hall,
We've been
yes, yeah,
working
I've
with,
seen that.
working with Sophia for a while now, and I think what they're creating is fantastic. Really,
Mm,
I think the product roadmap is really exciting. So, been working quite closely with the Study Hall team. Um, my work in terms of my advisory work is I try and keep it as practical and as simple as possible.
okay.
Um, so really, you know, just for example, over the last few days, working with some groups in London, working with HMC, which is the largest affiliate body, all the top boarding schools, public schools, are part of
Wow.
this particular affiliate body. So working with a lot of the heads of sixth form, just on simple things like how can you use AI, how can you create an AI PA,
Yeah,
how can you use one of these GPTs, the AI, the chat GPTs kind of bots that you can create to kind of to train it on your data so that you can ask it questions about policies and term dates and the staff handbook. And so
yeah,
you basically got this body of knowledge which you would want a really good PA to have.
yeah,
You can actually train the AI to act in a similar way. You can even kind of give it a bit of a personality, so it's sort of, you feel like you're talking to a PA,
yeah.
not a machine. So I think so yes, I work and advise into you know these platforms like Study Hall, and support building out the curriculum. And I worked with the Sophia, the CEO, on building out an AI literacy curriculum, building out like
Okay.
a prompt library that people can use for free. But then beyond that, it's more about working with individual groups and schools, etc. Just helping them make sense of it, because I think there's still quite a bit of fear.
Yeah.
There's still quite a bit of ignorance, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. Just frankly, people just don't know what they don't know,
Yeah, of course.
and so it's really about how do I demystify. Because to be perfectly honest with you, now you don't need to. I mean, the notion of prompt engineering, I just think it's not really a thing anymore. It's more. I often say it's more like prompt psychology. It's more like you're kind of trying to you're trying to work out how the AI kind of thinks in its machine brain, and how you can get the best out of how it's been trained, and also helping to schools and teachers to understand how it actually works. What is, what is a transformer model? How does a
Yeah.
transformer model differ from a diffusion model? What is a recurrent neural network, and how does it differ from a convolutional neural network? And these are things that you think aren't important, but actually they kind of are, because you kind of need to understand how AI is different from humans, because as soon as you understand how AI differs in its processes, it just means that you subtly change your approach to it in a way that you would approach AI in a similar way to a human, because it's chat. It's using natural language processing, so you can chat with it like you can a human. And yet there are some things that you can't do, and that you need to understand how to get the best out of it. And I think it's what we call AI literacy, essentially. It's kind of it's what sits underneath the surface. And I think if teachers and head teachers and leaders, they need to know how these things work, because the more you can do that, the more empowered you are to have conversations with your students and your parents to help them. And it puts you in a position of knowledge, as opposed to just kind of seeing AI as this kind of scary thing that I don't want to know about. I actually genuinely think this year, particularly, this is the year that schools and teachers need to understand how AI works in the background. They don't need to have a computer science degree, but they just need to understand the basics. It just gives them that position of power that they can teach their children from.
Yeah, I think, even the saying large language model to 90% of people who use ChatGPT would be straight over a lot of people's head. Again, no offense to anybody. I'm, as I said to you earlier, I'm the first time my hand up. I know very little about AI, and I wouldn't ever, try and pass myself off as an expert. But it's just that even that base level of knowledge on what it is, I think, like you say, is very empowering, and it's a brilliant explanation of how it can be empowering. So just to go back and talk about study hall, what does study hall do? Just to sort of tell the viewers.
Sure. So there are two main offers, one currently available and one in development and very, very soon to be released. So the current platform is essentially a platform to support and supercharge preparation for the transition between primary school and secondary school. Right. So if you look at the, and it's a real hotspot. I mean, it's a really, really big hotspot. When you look at the pupils who are transitioning from a prep school to an independent senior school and needing to do the 11 plus or the common entrance, or the ISCB pre-test and common entrance, which are kind of the testing points between prep school and senior school, SATs for state schools, the CAT4, which is a cognitive abilities test. So there's a series of tests that pupils do between primary school and secondary school, or prep school and senior school, that are very, very stressful and very, very challenging for the pupils, but also for the parents.
Yeah.
What Study Hall has is a suite of tools, AI-powered tools, to support preparation for that. So, and it's a very, very, and it uses machine learning and AI in a very intelligent way, and it's very simple to use. Most of it's free. The platform is largely free. There are paid editions, but the base platform is free. The second tool, which is being developed, which is about to be released in the next sort of few weeks, is what is called the Deep Reader. And the Deep Reader is essentially a social reading platform where you can have books and articles and text, and then you're able to actually have conversations inside the book. So you can actually have back and forth conversations inside the book itself, highlighting it. The teacher can write a comment, the pupils can respond. You can have quizzes actually integrated into the book. There's
Okay.
AI integrated into the book as well. So for background knowledge and vocabulary, the AI is reading the book as well.
Mm.
And there's nothing else like it out available at the moment.
Yeah.
Um,
Very
the
cool.
study hall has a partnership with Penguin Random House. It's also getting
Okay.
partnerships with other publishers in the next few months. So it's going to probably have most of the academic texts and fiction texts that are available for student
Yeah.
use that can actually be inside the platform. So it's really exciting. And I think what Sophia and the team are doing and the product roadmap and the other AI powered tools that are being developed means that probably in the next 3 to 6 months, we're actually going to see a lot of additionality and a lot of really exciting new ideas
Hmm.
that schools it's if basically what the team have done is they're responding to what teachers are asking.
Yeah.
Something as simple as right now, really good example, right now, there is not one single generative AI platform that any teacher will feel comfortable using with their pupils, because there's a little bit of ignorance around using ChatGPT, for example. So I mean, I have a 7-year-old son, and I'm happy for him to use ChatGPT because it very clearly says in the terms and conditions, under 18s, you need parental permission. It's fine. So I'm giving my son permission to use it.
Hmm.
Schools are obviously going to feel nervous about that because, of course, getting parental permission for every single kid is quite hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think one of the things that Study Hall's looking at, and I think there are going to be other companies doing this as well, but I think they're a bit ahead of the game here. Is they're working with developers to develop a safe generative AI to use for any age group. So any child
Okay.
will be able to learn how to prompt inside a safe space
So,
where
yeah.
all of
Yeah.
the where the data is fully guarded, so that none of their data is being used. So the reason that we have this law around young people not using generative AI is linked to COPPA in the US and GDPR in Europe.
Yeah. Of
So it's all about, and you know this because you guys are involved in this yourself
course. Yeah.
with your platform. So you know that there are limitations as to. So, but if we can start to create AIs that are fully guardrailed, that are like it's like a fully walled garden, where
Yeah.
you know that the child has got access to AI, generative AI, but their data does not leave the schools, literally doesn't physically leave, whether it's on an AWS server, whether it's actually on the
Yeah.
school's hard drive in the school. You
It's
know that
completely
data is
safe.
not leaving it's complete safe, then actually that no longer is an issue, that you don't have to
Mhm.
worry about the under 18 parental permission, because actually the school is covered in terms of its data protection duties. So I think that's where I see platforms like Study Hall and others that are being developed
Yeah.
getting AI used to the next level, because at the moment teachers are using it fine, head teachers using it fine, pupils are using it at home. But what's not happening, which really does have to happen to get us to the next level, is you have a teacher in the class setting up a task, setting up an activity. And as part of that activity, the
Students.
students have access to a generative AI tool,
Hmm.
text to text, text to image, text to video, whatever, where that becomes part of their workflow. It just becomes natural, in the same way that they might use an iPad or a calculator. They just use a generative AI tool. So,
Yeah.
but we're not there yet. But I think this year is definitely when we'll see that happen.
Yeah. You sound like you say, the roadmap is very clear and concise, and it also makes a lot of sense. I think, it's a very important thing to have it involved in the classroom, and also like the psychological aspect of it. If at the moment it's almost, I don't want to talk for everyone in every school, but it's almost demonized for
Yeah,
the
absolutely
pupils to
right.
use it. Which, I mean, if I don't know that you have children yourself, or it's people who do. It's when you tell a kid that they can't do something, they want to do it
Of
more.
course
So
they do.
it's
But
it's sorry, go on.
no, I was going to say, sorry, just to sort of add to that, the demonization, I don't understand. So I'm slightly at odds with some of the AI community, but I don't care if they can disagree with me as much as they like. ChatGPT is as guardrailed a platform as I've ever worked with.
Hmm.
Okay, Bard is super. I mean, I don't use Bard because it hallucinates like no one's business, but it's super guardrailed. Yeah, these
Yeah.
AIs, Pi as well, Claude, they're all very, very guardrailed. you try, unless you're an expert and use like what they call the Dan, the do anything now prompt, and you manage to jailbreak, which you can do, okay, and fair
Yeah.
enough, you can do it, but it takes a lot of effort to jailbreak an AI, particularly now, because they're just, every time someone jailbreaks,
They figure
they
that
put in
out.
another
Yeah.
guardrail. And so it's really hard to get ChatGPT to actually do or say anything which is the least bit kind of inappropriate. It's to almost to the point where it's almost kind of too much that way now, and it feels very deterministic sometimes when you're using it. So now, actually, for kids using ChatGPT, it's actually quite hard for them to prompt it to do anything that's concerning.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, if you compare that to the fact we let kids use the internet, it's like, hang on, so and that's way worse. I mean,
Yeah.
they can put in a query into Google, and
Absolutely
they can be
anything.
looking at porn in 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
it's like, or racist hate speech on Twitter, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
It's there.
absolutely. Yeah.
Human, all of the best and worst of humanity is on the internet. We know that. What ChatGPT and these AIs have done is they've put an intermediary layer between the internet content and people. There's a layer that sits between the two. And whether you agree or disagree with it, and it's biased, we know it's biased, but it's a layer that's there. It means that actually there are more protections with this than just going off onto the internet and searching.
Yeah.
So I think if you try and use the argument that AI is unsafe and dangerous, I think that's where I'm sometimes a little bit at odds with the rest of the AI community. I'm not saying that we should have a free for all. We need to teach students how to use it responsibly and ethically. Definitely, they need to understand things like bias and why it happens. Yeah. But I think if we demonize it to word that you use your word, we're actually doing them a huge disservice, and the reason is that the whole of the world is getting up to speed with AI, and there are going to be some countries that are approaching it in a very different way. If you look at East Asia, their AI literacy is very strong. These kids are learning. Like Hong Kong have a brilliant AI curriculum where they're learning at a very young age how AI works.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be at an advantage when they move into the workplace, because it's baked into their workflows as students. And if we say to our students, no, you can't look at it, you can't touch it, it's evil, it's demonized. Actually, when these kids come together as adults, the countries that are embracing it fully are going to be, these kids can be at so much of an advantage. I think we're not doing, by our collective nervousness of overusing it, which a lot of it does come from a place of ignorance. It really does. Yeah. People are saying, oh, it's bad, it's wrong, and they don't really understand what they're talking about. I think there's a danger in the next kind of 10 to 15 years that our kids are so far behind in the West from the rest of the world that puts them at a big disadvantage. So, and again, it goes back to what I was saying. This year, I think this is the most. Last year we were playing. Okay, last year we were just having a bit of fun with AI. We were just, we were seeing what pictures it could create on DALL-E, and we were just having a bit of fun with it and doing. No, we didn't take it seriously. We have to take it seriously this year, because if we don't, we'll find it just gets way ahead of us. And then where are we? Because actually the AI is just working in ways that we don't understand.
Grown and grown and grown. It's growing
exactly.
exponential rate at the moment. It's interesting you came to that topic of the, where things might start parting ways in how quickly they're advancing in the East and compared to over here, because it's something that I've spoken about before on the podcast. Also, I think it's an interesting concept, just to get your idea on it. It's especially within within England, for example, probably the only country I know a lot about to speak about confidently. There are areas that are more deprived than others, so that means there's going to be areas that have access to it a lot easier than others. It might actually the division and segregation that are already in perhaps the classes might grow even further, which is perhaps a bit of a scary thought. It might benefit some people, in positions of power, not to get political, but it's also, I think, on a local scale as well as a global scale, it's a bit of a a crazy concept, really.
Yeah. So what we call the digital divide, is absolutely it's potentially only going to get worse, because if you need it's not just access to pay, the paid models are better than the free models. I mean, that's obvious, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
ChatGPT
of course.
4 is, even if you look, people don't understand that actually ChatGPT 4 is eight AI models, not one. So it's eight 170 billion parameter models. So it's this, but those eight models are all trained in different ways. And so it's not just 8 times more powerful than 3.5, it's orders of magnitude better because of the way in which they work with what they call a mixture of experts, the sort of
Yeah,
the different models that sit underneath.
yeah. All,
So you've got that, okay, and if you can't afford $20 a month, then you're not going to have access. But it's also the fact that in some parts of the country, as you say, they don't even have access to devices to use these
yeah,
tools on. In school, maybe less so at home, because even kids from very deprived backgrounds, most of them will have access to at least one smartphone. So,
yeah.
but they probably and possibly don't have access to their own smartphone if they're from very deprived parts of the. But in the schools, they don't have access to very, very good tools, and it's the same in other parts of the world. So I think the next stage for us is going to be all about how can we, for example, start repurposing old devices. If companies are chucking out it's actually not, you don't need very much processing power to
No.
run an AI model, as in to use, not to run, to use an AI model, because of course it's all hosted elsewhere. And so actually you're what we call a thin client, which is basically, as you know, it's kind of all the processing power goes on somewhere else, and the device is just an interface. It's just a user interface, and all of the clever work goes on in the background. And essentially, that's what AI is. I use ChatGPT on my phone. I'm not doing any. There's no processing power happening on
No.
my phone. It's all happening in some server farm in the US or wherever it is in the world that the servers are based. So I think that's the case, then actually you don't need a particularly powerful device to be able to use ChatGPT really, really well. And so now I think we need to be very, very focused in the next year or two on making sure that we are getting cheap devices, repurposed, reconditioned devices into these communities. Because if we don't, what you said is right. You're going to this division is only going to get worse, because not only are you going to have the wealthy people are going to have access to ChatGPT 4,
Yeah,
but they're also got the devices to. So it's like a double divide, if you like, unless we
absolutely.
do something
Yeah.
about it now.
It's amplified by the
Yeah,
AI
exactly.
almost. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how. It's always a question that I ask, and as we're coming to the end of the podcast now, it's just and it's a very, very hard question to ask, and I don't answer. I don't expect you to even be confident with the answer, but it'll be interesting to get your opinion. Where do you see AI and AI's place in,
Yeah.
in education and in the community 5 years from now?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question, and it's definitely worth sort of spending a few minutes on just to finish off. So I think, look, a few things that will happen, and I call it 3Ds. Other people have said things. I think we're going to see some further democratization of access,
Hmm.
and providing we do what we've done, which is what we've just said, which is make sure people have access to the tools.
Yeah.
Though actually, I can, as an educator, I can bottle my academic DNA, and I can train a model, and a kid from South America could have access to that. So
Hmm.
it's because you can capture so much now with AI, that expertise can be bottled and then actually transported. So we're actually definitely going to see some democratization. We're going to see some decentralization of so we're no longer having to have all of our power resting at the center.
Hmm.
Because if you think that the way you organize curricula, pedagogy, assessment, it's all very centralized. But actually, we can start to decentralize, and we're already seeing what we call educational DAOs, or these decentralized autonomous organizations. We're starting to see that, decision making sitting on the blockchain. I think we're going to see more and more of that in the future. The other D that I talk about is actually what I call dynamic differentiation. So we can actually flex learning pathways in real time, because the AI is so good at capturing data and so good at processing data so quickly. It's always learning, and it will more and more. We're going to see every pupil have access to their own AI mentor, their own AI bot.
Yeah.
That will happen probably in the next sort of year to 18 months, where we're going to start seeing like AI tutors, not to replace the teacher, but kind of to augment what the teacher does,
Right. Okay.
so
Yeah.
that the pupil has access to an AI entity, which is a supportive entity. If that's the case, I think we may well see smaller schools developing, maybe more small community hubs. where we don't need as many teachers because, of course, the AI can do quite a bit of that work. We might even see a blurring of work and school, where you might have little autonomous entities where the parents go and work in a like a co-working space while their kids are going off and being educated, and they can come together for lunch and for clubs and things. So I think we could see some quite interesting things happening. I think we'll see more privileging of face-to-face because we're more and more nervous about deep fakes and voice cloning, and so I think we start to privilege more face-to-face interaction. So I think the positive, I think there will be some net positives, but only if we start to address some of the potential negatives now, and we start planning these new ways of living and new ways of learning and working to accommodate the potential that AI has.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, fantastic way of putting it. I feel educated myself from this podcast, so thank you very much. I really appreciate your time today, Darren, and hopefully we'll do it again at some point. I feel like there's more to go on about. I feel like it could last a while, this one.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a big subject. It's a big
Oh
subject.
yeah, huge. Not able to cover it all in 20 minutes, unfortunately, half an hour. But yeah, fantastic. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me, Darren. Have you got any sort of social media platforms, anything you'd like to put out there?
Yeah, you can follow me on LinkedIn. It's just LinkedIn Darren/Coxon. That's where I post every day, so just if you want any kind of advice and updates or ideas, very simple. I keep it very simple ideas for how you can use AI in your school. Then yeah, I think probably the best thing to do is just follow me on LinkedIn, and then you can just take it from there.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time today, Darren. Speak to
Brilliant.
you soon.
Cheers, Harry.
Thank you.